Hello. Can you hear me? You're mute now.
Yeah, hello. How are you?
Ah, perfect. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. I thought Cliff is gonna present. He's gonna present, so that's why I didn't admit you. I wanted to first check the connection and everything, and that and
Sure, no problem.
afterwards.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I don't know what to expect actually. So is it the two of us, or I thought it would be a crowd, and I was a little bit anxious about not being or in already when there is some audience.
There will be audience. I'm waiting, as I said, just to first test everything and then to
Okay,
admit everybody. So, could you just share maybe your screen to see if
sure.
everything is okay? And I'm gonna start admitting people.
Yeah, good point. Host disabled participants screen sharing. So please
Sure. Yeah.
allow me.
Just sec. Just sec. Uh, share screen. Now you should be able to share screen.
There you go. You should see my screen
Yeah,
now,
I can see
and I
very
just put it full screen.
perfect. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So yeah, everything is perfect. All right. You could stop sharing right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna start admitting the people, and then I'm gonna uh do a quick introduction about Sofia Revit User Group, what we do, and
Mhm.
then I'm gonna pass to you.
Awesome. Sounds beautiful.
Six. Hello, everybody. Uh, we're just waiting a little bit to avoid any technical issues right now and to wait a bit for everybody who uh, is gonna join us today. While we are waiting, I'm gonna do a quick introduction again about the Sofia Revit User Group, what we do, and also what you could expect today. So, just real quick here, I'm gonna share my screen. I hope you're able to see my screen. You could participate using the chat. So it will be nice to see you there active. So you could also asking questions there. So please, if you have anything to ask or want to say something, use the chat. Just a second here again. Let me know if you could hear me first, please. Okay. So we established a Sofia Revit User Group in 2018. We start with live meetings to gather together people around BIM and especially Revit here on local ground in Sofia, Bulgaria. The idea is to bring together the people in the field and help them tackle their day-to-day challenges with the software and in the entire ecosystem, actually, in the digitalization uh, of the construction sector here in Bulgaria. So we are a group of not only architects but engineers, also consultants, different people who are involved in the construction process. We do roughly 4 meetings each year. You could find more information about Sofia Revit User Group on our website, Sofia rug.com. We do have also YouTube channel. Here on the bottom. You could find a link to our YouTube channel, and there you could find recordings of our live sessions, and also something that we started recently are the webinars. We try to bring not only local knowledge but international knowledge and experience to our local group. That's why we start inviting international guests who has some or deeper experience in BIM, in Revit, and all the topics that we're discussing to present different topics and to enlarge our scope of interest. Okay, I think we waited enough, so I will give the word to Akus, who will present today's topic. And from here, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and let's see what Akus got for us.
Hey, hello, thank you so much. Such a nice organization. I really like the images, the pictures from the live meetings. I wish I was there. So can you see my screen now just to make sure that everything is okay?
I think it is. We can see it. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. The topic that we picked for today is not only about Revit. I'm pretty sure you are much more better experts and top experts compared to me when it comes to Revit, so I wouldn't even be challenged. It is more about BIM management in general, especially talking about ISO 19650. And I'm going to introduce that topic from our perspective, which is Plannerly. You will see it all around on the slides. And again, thank you for having us. A little bit of background about myself as well, since I heard about yourselves as well. So I'm an architect. I happened to be ending up on the software side of things very early in my career. So since 2005-ish, I'm working in building information modeling. I took part in a very good startup back in the early years, which was Vico Software. I learned a lot there about model-based cost estimating, scheduling, and how to build purpose-built models for different kind of use cases. And eventually, together with Clive Jordan, this experience went into a software application, a platform today, which is called Plannerly. So again, this ISO 9650 workflow is going to be introduced from that perspective. So a little bit of the agenda, and I'm going to do my best to be on time, so just wrap it up as effectively as possible, so we still have time for questions and answers in the end. But we are going to talk about ISO 19650 as a standard. So let's talk about why we need standards at all. Then what is ISO 19650? And then we go into the implementation part of things about different documents, abbreviations, processes, resources that we will have to talk about. So let's start with the first one. What is BIM? What is BIM for you? And quickly going through it, because we have another article which talks about BIM for your grandma, pretty much. How would you talk about BIM for your grandma? Maybe these are images from them, from that article, so not necessarily meant for you. But the question is it BIM? Of course it is BIM, but then what it is it another BIM? Is it better BIM? Is it worse BIM? And we could go on and just show a couple of images, of course, with different kind of geometrical aspects, but we can also assume different information going into it, different techniques, different ways of creating models. And if you put different personas on the screen as well, we also know that BIM is different for everyone. So an architect understands the BIM challenges and design development differently than, for example, an owner who is requesting the BIM. And that is what we believe is a main kind of challenge to start with, because we are still not speaking necessarily the same language. So a requirement coming from an organization which is for them, BIM is not their daily business, conveyed that message to an architect who is doing design using BIM software and technologies, then of course there is a gap in between and misunderstanding potentially. So because of that, because of trying to find the common language, there have been lots of best practices already. So this image was taken now, unfortunately, 7 years ago. But we know that well, BIM is not new. It has been around for 30 years now. So there have been lots of different best practices and standards and local standards and guidelines and whatsoever templates released. But where we ended up around the end of 2020, let's say, is lots of isolated bubbles and different kind of approaches to solve the same kind of challenge. And even though we had these kind of approaches, where we ended up is this picture, which is BIM became a topic, BIM became important, BIM even became contractual. But in many cases, it only meant that someone was saying that on this project, we are going to do BIM. Yes, please deliver BIM. And what it actually means, there was no detail about. So it was a huge black box, and everyone was imagining something about BIM. It could be also two ends of the spectrum, no discussion about BIM at all, or going to the other extreme as well. I do need BIM to an LOD 500, whatever that means, with all the COBie parameters. So that is a huge administration burden and pretty much an impossible target as well. We found in this survey that clear BIM goals were already only defined in less than 2% of the cases, which is, of course, far from being ideal. That's why we ran into issues and the typical topics and problems coming up, like I'm missing information for my use case. If it's clash detection, there are just way too many clashes. We cannot really manage those clashes. It results lots of remodeling and burning cash and not realizing the goals and benefits that we wanted to. Well, in general, we can say that communication, as I pointed out earlier as well, communication is pretty bad. Well, we think this is kind of the nature of AEC, but it doesn't have to be. So lots of issues. If you take a quick look at the screen, I'm pretty sure you can identify some of those that you already run into on your projects. Lots of problems to be solved, right? So then ISO 19650 came. Why ISO 19650? ISO 19650 is putting everything now on the ground and outlines the concepts and principles, as you can see on the screen, of information management, specifically focusing on building information modeling. It for all types of assets, so you can think about a school, you can think about a hospital, but you can as well think about infrastructure projects. So ISO 19650 as an information management standard is applicable to all types of assets. It's a unified approach, meaning that I showed a couple of templates, and I'm pretty sure you saw lots of these as well, which were isolated. Now bringing all that knowledge together into one single guideline standard to be followed, and is being adopted globally. So actually, that's really true. So at Planoly, we are really happy to have over 75,000 users globally, and independent of whether we are talking with someone from Japan or Brazil or the Middle East or Europe, ISO 19650 is a huge topic that is coming up on a daily basis. And of course, being educated in ISO 19650, that's a huge value that makes us really valuable when it comes to employing, for example. So what is ISO 19650? Well, that's a pretty bad picture to paint, but ISO 19650 is a huge pile of papers, which has to be read. So there is no way around to reading the standards. Probably it's a couple of iterations to get your heads around it. But yeah, it's a standard that to be followed, but there are ways to make it a little bit more simple. I will show some things about it. It has different parts. First, to talk about the principles and concepts. The second part, which is I think the backbone of it really, and the backbone being this process chart that you see as well. So it really outlines how you go from nothing to delivering the project and learning from that project. This process step, this process, as I build the screen, you see it is 8 steps starting from assessment and need, as I mentioned, going all the way to closing the project and learning, taking the lessons learned on the project. So this is the heart. I mentioned backbone, heart, pretty much the same thing. You cannot live without it. So if you start unfolding it, each and every process steps is just opening up into more process steps, sub steps. Then for each and every sub step, we have a documentation. For each and every documentation, we can unfold it, and there is an entire paragraph talking about the needs, and introducing new terms as well, like the organizational information requirement, project information requirement, asset information requirement, exchange information requirement, and lot more. So at this point, when I just start introducing the topic, either I'm doing wrong, or typically that's what we see, a little bit of confusion, thinking about that, well, is this the big thing? Is this the thing that is going to save our industry and going to make us talk about the same thing in the same language? So we have to step back one step and try to simplify it. We have to go step by step and really help your way through and help your heads around the topic. And that's our mission at Planoly, actually. So what we are doing at Planoly, one of our motto is making BIM simple. So we are focusing on such BIM management that is going to be easy to be followed, easy to operate, and really simple when it comes to our platform as well. It's a simple user interface to make sure that, well, BIM as a topic is really complex. Having the standards doesn't make it much more simple either. At least have a platform which is going to help you in simple BIM management. But anyways, what we are doing with ISO 19650 as well is taking all those images that I showed you and put it into one easy to understand picture, starting with the 8 process step being on the top. So that's what we are going to go through today in this presentation, from assessment and need, invitation to tender, tender response, appointment, mobilization, collaborative information production. So that's when we do the modeling, information delivery, and project closeout. ISO 19650 introduced terms as well. Lots of terms actually, but the generalized expression about the different parties is appointing party, lead appointed party, and appointed party. Appointing party being the owner, the client who buys the project. Lead appointed party who is taking care of a bigger topic around the project. Let's say the lead architect, the lead designer, the contractor who is responsible for a larger chunk of information creation. And appointed parties are the subcontractors, the designers who are reporting or delivering to the lead appointed party. And in this picture, as you might see, we are trying to introduce how information is going to flow from one party to another, also suggesting who is responsible for information creation at a given point in time throughout the entire process. And not only that, but we are going to help you with the templates even. So what is an AIR? If you don't know that, you can look into Planoly and you will find an example for that, how to create an AIR to execute the given process step. So we are going to talk about this entire topic today in 3 bigger chunks, starting with number 1, the tendering process. So the tender process starts with assessment and need and invitation to tender. So assessment and need, meaning that the appointing party, the owner, the client, identifies a need for a project and start to creating the documentation or a documentation that will be sent around for different participants to be joining the project and executing together. First of all, we need an information manager. So that's a new role, actually. That's a new opportunity for all of us to be an information manager on a project. This information manager could be hired, could be at the appointing party as well, at the customer. But if the customer is lacking that kind of skill, lacking that kind of expertise, it could be an external consultant as well. So we see it's also a great business opportunity to be an external consultant providing information management services to larger accounts. Once we have this person in place, then we can start putting together the documents, which are the basic starting documents for our project: OIR, AIR, PIR. So OIR meaning the organizational information needs or requirements. What is the reason? Why does the organization operates at all? Those are kind of things. How do they do business? What are the principles for that organization? Those kind of things go into the OIR. PIR, strongly related, but talks about the project principles and the project goals. AIR is the back end of the things, the asset information requirements. So how this asset, how the assets in a project are going to be operated later on. All these two. The collaborators, the different parties in the tendering process. So we help you with this one. If you happen to be using Planoly, you don't have to invent these documents. You will find these documents as templates inside of Planoly. So you will see all those small images on the top left corner, OIR, PIR, AIR, EIR. So for all these kind of topics, you will find templates in the application. And in the middle of the screen, you see that we made it very simple to use these templates. You go to a library, you decide which document you need for your given process step. You just add it to your project, and there you go. You have the document. The only thing to do is to fill out this documentation with project-specific information, maybe get rid of something that you don't need. And in the end, you can also create your own set of templates so that on the next project, you are going to start from your own documents. That's kind of the text-based portion of your agreement, of the tender process that we are going through. We can talking about building information modeling, of course, which is an object-oriented database in the end. So we can also talk about structured data and requesting information in a structured manner. For that, we are creating these responsibility matrices. In such matrices, we can start requesting information for the given use cases. Because we are in the very beginning of the processes, we can start talking about our project on a higher level, on the different assets that we are going to request, and start assembling the asset information requirement documentation. So you see that this is now a more of a table structure where we can put in a hierarchy structure all our requirements and maybe start listing the different use cases if we have different use cases that we want to talk about and think about from the very beginning of the project. We can stay on very high level because remember that we are in the very beginning of the processes, but important pieces of information that we are going to request, important aspects can already be discussed here, even going down into the details of information requirements. What are we going to expect for sure from the project at a given point in time? So talking about tendering process, we have now our requirements and we can start inviting our collaborators. We have a nice function for that in the platform to invite teams, prospective teams who don't see anything, only the documentation that you share with them. So you can have multiple prospective teams. It's really supporting a tendering idea. In the end, they will send back the same information to you, or in the same structure, they send back the information to you so you can compare apple to apple. Really easy to decide who to work with. So that was very quickly finding out that you need the project, creating as an appointing party. So maybe it's not relevant for everyone. If you are a supplier, of information, a designer, in a perfect world, you should be receiving these invitations for tendering. But if you are representing an appointing party, a customer, these are the documents that are going to be put together in the very beginning to create the EIR, which is in the end going to be the invitation to tender. In the next step, we assemble together a tender response and go through the appointment process. The tender response being the main document that we all know is the execution plan. In the execution plan, we answer the challenges and the questions and the requirements that we received in the EIR documentation and start adding some more and more information into it, like mobilization. How are we going to mobilize our resources? Let them be human resources or software, hardware. How are we going to fulfill the requirements? Also, what kind of risk can we identify? How are we going to mitigate those risks? So that's our tender response. That's something that multiple parties are assembling side by side, not knowing about each other. Of course, we are talking about the tender process. So in the end, as a kind of an iteration process, the appointing party chooses who to work with. And that's when we can go more into the details and creating a post-appointment, so after contracting kind of execution plan, which really goes down and settles the details of the project, how we are going to deliver the project. And that's the appointment document, that's the contract. So needless to mention, you will find support for this in Planoly. So all these templates and the resources and documentation that I'm talking about, you will find examples for that and templates in the platform. So you take whatever you need and just fill it out. You've already seen this kind of table user interface. That's our scope module, where you can start detailing out who is doing what at a certain point in time for what kind of reasons. So another motto that we have, the right BIM at the right time by the right people for the right reasons. That's what we create here, the right requirements, really making sure that everyone understands why we are doing BIM, how this BIM is going to be used downstream. And we can really talk about all the details that needed, about the geometrical need, about responsibilities, about information requirements, and so on and so on. Maybe it's a better picture about that. So we are going to create such information containers that really calls out for all the details, and templatized in a templatized manner, meaning that you have a template for that you can reuse from project to project, but also customizable on each and every project, so you can really agree with all the project stakeholders about the principles. I want to pause here for a second and just try to reiterate and rephrase what I'm just saying, because I stated that one of the big problems that we see in the industry is miscommunication. Not necessarily understanding what is needed for a project, not necessarily understanding why we are doing information management or BIM on a project. In many cases, we also see that the appointing party is not necessarily in a position to fulfill their role. So they have different business objectives, different than running a BIM project. Therefore, they might be challenged to be requesting the right information. And if that's unknown, if they cannot request the information for the purpose, of course, the suppliers, the designers, the contractors cannot deliver that information. So I find it very crucial. This part, I believe we could spend all day on it just to discuss. So this is the crucial part, to make sure that everyone really understands why we are doing BIM, how it is going to be used, and who has to deliver what at a given point in time. After that, it's a piece of cake to create a contract out of it. So again, assuming to use Planoly, we have some preset outputs that you can rely on, even having e-signatures in the application. So if you follow a process, if you follow a formal process, you can even get as far as getting electronic ink on the paper and have a green light to get started. This was whatever I told about. This was the creation of the agreement. Again, cannot emphasize enough how important it is. Once we have these agreements, we can jump into the collaborative information production, so to the modeling pretty much. When we do that, we probably want to agree on timing. So creating a Gantt schedule, as we typically do, or any kind of timing approaches, plans, can be done, again, using Planoly. There is an easy to do that way, because each and every requirement that you created, each and every information container is translated into a task, which can have a dependency, which can have a duration. So you can really start scheduling the activities. Then you will find a Kanban board in the application as well, to really follow how the different tasks are being completed and how the different teams are performing compared to the requirements. Last but not least, while we are creating the models, and of course that's the longest period of time of the entire project, the digital execution, let's say, models are being created by multiple parties, models are being delivered, and models are being received by the different parties. But there is a huge question, the compliance, whether we meet the requirements of the contractual requirements or not. So that's something that we can, do in very many different ways today as well. What we learn from our customers before they start using Planoly is that they typically have two huge screens. That's a typical BIM workstation, and on one screen having a model open, and another screen having maybe a spreadsheet open about the requirements, and then trying to compare whether everything is there as requested. Now we automated that process, and you can just drop in, and actually talking to a Revit user group, you might be using already ACC BIM 360. So if you want to, you can even link up Planoly with your ACC account using native Revit model, but we are a strong supporter of OpenBIM as well. So using IFC, whatever the file exchange format might be, we can automate the checking process. And again, here at Planoly, we are trying to simplify everything. So we give you a quality or feedback about the quality of the model based on the color code. If something is green, that's perfect. There was an information requirement for your elements, and which is translated into a modeling property and property values. If you see a green color, all these are just working perfectly. I mean, you meet the information requirements. If you see an orange color, it would mean that you do have the property as requested, but the information is missing or wrong. If you see a red color, it would mean that you don't have that property. So very simple color coding and actionable items after that. I was talking about structured data. So structured data is again key in our BIM world. So this structured data, of course, is created as a starting point inside of Planoly, but doesn't stay inside of Planoly because otherwise it wouldn't be a great help. So there are lots of tools out there that you are using for creating information. Talking to a Revit group, most likely your preferred solution is going to be Revit. But if you want to visualize like Power BI or other tools, or if you want to do quality checking in different tools, you have to hand over the structured data for the next process step. We can do that in different ways, but one of the ways which is taking off, and it's relatively new. I think officially it was just or the version of it was just announced a month ago or so, even though it is in development for a long time now. So that is the Information Delivery Specification, the IDS in short, coming from Building Smart. IDS defines how information has to be delivered. So Information Delivery Specification, as the name says, and it's supposed to have a human readable version. So something like our scope module where you can very easily communicate the requirements, but it does have a machine readable version as well. So that's what we are relying on, and that's what we believe in at Planoly as well, creating from your scope requirements a machine readable XML format that is sent out to all these different parties and going to be used for either information creation or for quality checking purposes outside of Planoly as well. I will show you an add-on for Revit because we do have an external company in Germany who was developing an add-on that can capture the IDS coming from Planoly and then create all the shared parameters in Revit. So it really semi-automates, I would say, but prepares everything for the user as much as possible to create good content and not having to look around in different places to understand what the requirements are. To talk a little bit more about this picture, it is all about standardization. So the main topic that we are talking about now and what I'm going through with you is the ISO 19650 workflow. Actually, I should mention also ISO 17412 if you are interested in that. That is the level of information need concept, and that goes hand in hand with our scope module. It is about defining the information need on a project for the given purpose. So if you want to go back to that, and if there are any questions about it, I'm more than happy to talk about it as long as needed. So that's how the scope module also supports the idea of clear communication of the requirements. And that's the 17412 standard as well. But this what I show you now, it's another standard from Building Smart. It's a set of standards actually, and Building Smart is, again, they are also fully supporting the ISO workflow. So starting from BSDD, the Building Smart Data Dictionary, to make sure that, again, we speak the same language. It's a dictionary. So if you are looking for something, look into that, let it be properties, let it be classifications. You look into the Building Smart Data Dictionary and you find answers for your question. It is integrated in our application, so you don't have to look too far. Then once you created your information kind of exchange matrix, responsibility matrix scope, that goes into the IDS. So IDS is generating this XML format that can be used in other external applications for authoring or quality checking. Exchange in the Building Smart Open BIM world happens with IFC, and talking about issues is happening, or topics, I should say, is in the BCF format. This part, the starting part of the workflow, is very relevant for today's topic, especially IDS. I think is going to be exciting for this user group as well. So I would encourage to look into that, and I will come back to this topic a little bit later as well. And kind of as a conclusion on the entire workflow, we know that we are talking about data exchange, we are talking about information need, we are talking about advanced BIM, the techniques. We are still exchanging files in the end of the day, a huge amount of files as well. So one thing that when companies start implementing ISO 19650, we find one of the big topics is, for example, how to exchange this data, but also how to name the files. So file naming standards is a big topic, and we believe that it takes up a lot of resources to actually agree and then manage these file namings. So this is also something that we take care of. So if you are interested, just take a look in Planoly. We have a file manager, which in file manager, you can upload your models, which is going to be linked to a completion as well. So you can really follow, I said models, but any kind of files. You can follow through the completion of these files throughout the entire project. But also we are going to start collecting and storing metadata of these files. Metadata being like who created it. Simple for us to understand because we have it in the system. We can start implementing approval workflows. We can start collecting such information that would be relevant for the project. And based on this information, we are going to automatically assemble the naming convention string. So what I said is that in ISO 19650 implementation, naming convention takes up a huge topic and is time consuming and labor intensive. Now we automated that inside of Planoly as well. So very quickly, running through the entire workflow, that's what we've done now. In the end, not to forget actually the lessons learned step. I think that's a really important part. And if we talk about a platform like Planoly, that's also a crucial part because I mentioned a few times templates. And if you have your own company templates, the quality of work and the efficiency of your work is going to be just extremely increased. And that's what we believe in as well. So you can take templates from us, as I mentioned a few times. There are starting points and templates that Planoly is being shipped with, but the best practice is to start creating your own templates, to start formatting in a way that works for you, adding content to it, deleting content, whatever turns them into your templates, and develop them over time from project to project. So lessons learned and incorporating these lessons from every project into a template, which template is going to be used for the next project, I think is crucial for the continuous learning as well. So this is, again, running through the entire workflow and then talking a little bit more about the resources. So ISO 19650, a standard, it has to be purchased and it has to be read. I think there is no really way around it. I suggest to say or reserve some time for that. Me personally, I spent some good nights reading through the templates, but after a couple of iterations, I got it. So that's something to be done. Then, of course, you can look around in different channels as well. So YouTube is a great source for information. Please consider checking our Planoly channel as well, because we have dedicated webinars for ISO 19650, unfolding this topic even further. BSI or the UK BIM Alliance, that's a pretty good source for information when it comes to ISO 19650. UK BIM Alliance, UK BIM Framework, you will find these links, and I'm going to send you this presentation as well, but you will find this link on what is ISO 19650 on our website and some external links pointing to these resources. These guidances that you can see is a great help to really understand the details of the standard. Then what I also wanted to point out is, again, please visit our website and the resources website. I was dropping in a couple of topics like ISO 17412, the level of information need concept. So if you are interested in that, and if you are interested what happens to LOD today, because we might be hearing that LOD should go away and we should not use any tags and any numbers, there is a good article about it. My personal opinion, since I brought up this topic, that LOD made a great journey on a global scale in the past 20 years and established the next step, next stage to be able to talk about information exchange. But we can agree that maybe one number like LOD 300 doesn't really express enough what we need for a project. So, and that's also part of the confusion in some cases. LOD 300 is something for one person and something for another, something else for another person. So the level of information need concept says that we should get away from these scales and start talking in plain language and communicating our requirements for the purpose, geometrical and information requirements as well, for the purpose in a plain language. Much more about it over here, and yeah, I just recommend to watch it. IDS, I think that's an interesting topic, especially in relation with the Revit plugin. So whatever you create on the Planoly user interface as a very simple to understand set of requirements can be communicated, as I mentioned, through a plugin to Revit. And this video, these are going to be clickable. So if you have the presentation, you can click on them. But also you will find everything on our resources page. So that video talks about the details of how to use the IDS in Revit. We also launched a training program. Now we are at the first level, the basics, but 2 more levels are coming, advanced and expert levels. So these trainings are going to talk about BIM management practicalities, as well as the last level is hardcore ISO. So stay tuned. Maybe you want to join the basics training today, but the expert level is going to be about ISO 19650. Some more resources. I can share this process chart with you, and we have on our website short videos targeting different topics when it comes to ISO implementation. And maybe one more thought, which is a typical starting point when you start implementing ISO 19650, is a gap analysis. Probably you can run it in-house as well. There are professionals and there are companies who are doing an ISO gap analysis for you as well if you wanted to. But this is a kind of a standard process that helps you understanding the ISO needs, what ISO 19650 talks about, and compare it to your current processes and see if there is a gap. If there is a gap between the requirements, the needs that ISO outlines, and between your today's processes, and understanding these gaps will also help you see what has to be fulfilled, what has to be added to your processes in order to be ISO compliant. We can put you in touch with service providers if you are interested in running such an analysis and understanding your current level in relation to ISO 19650 and making the necessary steps to become ISO audited, even if that's needed. Lots of other resources. I think I'm not going to repeat myself. Please visit, actually I am repeating myself, but please visit our website and you will find these resources on the website. Also, if you create a free account on Planoly.com, which you can do, you will have access to all these templates as well. So I believe these are great starting points that you can take and adjust it for your needs. So these templates, please just take a look on them. I quickly ended up with my summary slide to kind of conclude. ISO 19650 bringing new terminology. Maybe that's not the most important, but all this terminology is talking about resources and documentation, something to familiarize ourselves with. ISO 19650 is a global framework, and it's a huge value for companies and for individuals as well to be educated on ISO 19650. We see again on a global scale that getting certified in ISO 19650 is becoming kind of crucial for international projects. That's it. I think that's my conclusion in the end. Please use the resources, and I can only encourage you to take the necessary steps to become an ISO expert. Please shoot any questions if you have.
Okay, maybe I'll start and see if anyone joins with some questions in the chat. You brought the topic about LOD before, and it's a very interesting topic, and there's a lot of discussion around it. And correct me if I'm wrong, there is no standard saying what LOD, let's say 300 or 500 is, right? That's why you said that there is this issue that the people are talking about different things when referring to the same LOD, but in fact they're not understanding each other very well.
Absolutely right. So there is not even an agreement of what LOD means. Is it a level of detail, level of development, level of definition? In some cases, LOD is a combination of pretty much everything, combination of a geometrical requirement and combination of information all in one. In some cases, it's really regional or company specific how everyone wants to understand it. So again, in some cases, LOD is only the detail of the geometry, and we start introducing LOI and LOA for information requirements and accuracy. So that's a journey that happened over in the past 20 years, and that's the reason for introducing the standard to standardize these different approaches and make sure that we request the same kind of information and deliver the same kind of information. And the idea is in this concept, which is the level of information need, is not to use these scales because these are misleading. I've been in contact with lots of industry players, and I typically hear that this is a problem, contracting for something, and then well, in most cases not fulfilling it because they just didn't understand each other. For us, as a last note, in Plenary, we can put tags on the requirements. So we can say it's LOD 325, for example. That's a step in Denmark. We can say that, but for us in the background, there is always an explanation of what it is. So I think actually that's my personal preference, not that it really matters, but seeing a number is, I think, good because it helps you understanding if it's a lot or it's not that much. So it puts you in a direction right away. But it is really a huge problem that a number doesn't cover everything and doesn't mean the same thing for the different parties. So explaining what that number is crucial.
So your best advice would be to explain everything in plain text. So if we look into this through the prism of Revit, let's say, each element that needs to be modeled or each category should be listed, and for each category you should explain what's the level of information and level of geometry development that needs to be achieved, let's say. So there is no universal way. So you should explain for each element how developed it should be, right? Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So what you see on the background, that repeating short video, and maybe just let me know if I can open it up in bigger as well, which I will do actually. Let me leave the presentation slides and go to plenary.com real quick. A website that I would recommend to visit, join free, take a look at our resources, training, and so on and so on. I'm going to go to the demo because there are some videos which I'm not going to bore you with. But if I scroll down a little bit, I want to answer the question about explaining our needs. Explaining the needs, especially when it comes to a level of information requirements, there is a trend that it used to be an LOI 2 or LOI 3. And what is that? Really not described. So for us, in the end, it has to be a Revit parameter anyway. What we believe in is to request that parameter from the very beginning, to define the different use cases. So that's what you see on the horizontal axis. Let's say I'm going to do a design review, a 3D coordination handover. It could be anything. It could be quantity takeoff, scheduling, whatever, you name it. And for each and every use case, you might need different information. Different receiving applications are going to be use the information. Therefore, you have to add something more and more potentially. But it has to be a Revit parameter anyway. So why not defining that requirement instead of saying it's an LOI 3, defining the requirements in plain language. So that's the information requirement that you can see here. And then you can start requesting that for that element, for the given use case, I need this information. Now, it doesn't have to happen on each and every project. You don't have to define it on each and every project. We believe in using templates, as I mentioned earlier. So creating such templates is going to be reused from project to project and will define the requirements. And this is exactly what is going to be sent out into information delivery specification XML format that you can read in Revit, so you don't have to recreate the same in Revit because it's going to be there for you. And the same applies to geometry, actually. So it's now you see the detailed elements as a geometrical requirement and proposed reliability. I cannot click on this one now because it's just a video, but if you click on it, you have a larger view, better describing what it actually means. These are scales that you can move both the geometry and the reliability needs. This is something that could be replaced with a number, but again, suggested to rather go with the textual plain explanation.
Yeah, my question was mostly related to the geometry requirements because for the information, at least for me, it's pretty clear. If the parameter is there, does the parameter has a value? Okay, so you could really quickly check that, and this is, let's say, not easy to manage, but easy to understand, and it's easy to see if you're complying with the requirement or not. On the other hand, about the geometry, it's a bit more tricky because some elements could be represented only as boxes, or they could have further detail with some I don't know little elements, I don't know, bolts and everything else. If we are referring to steel structure, for example.
Mhm.
So I was wondering how do you uh, tackle the question about geometry requirements and how you uh, form the requirement about the geometry. If you rely on a plain text, just to let's say you do not model anything larger than a specific number. If it's smaller than I don't know 2 or 3 centimeters, you don't need to model it. For example, it doesn't need to be part of the model.
Right.
Uh, or how do you place these framework to
Right.
uh,
So in the meantime, I just opened up Plenary really quick, and I'm going to go to the scope module. And here, actually, I'm going to use an example which does have it a little bit defined already.
okay?
So I'm just adding an architecture and structural responsibility matrix real quick to my project. And if I open it up, you will see that actually it already by default is not coming with a number. I could change the setting, but it says something about the geometry. With the plus and minus signs, actually, I can change it, and it suggests that there is some different information needed. Now, if I click on it, yes, actually, to answer your question quickly, it is text information that will describe you how to model, but we are putting it in a certain structure. So the geometry is a combination of geometry and reliability, and you see it's a scale going from symbolic. You mentioned a box representation, for example, going from symbolic representation to as detailed as a fabrication component. So that's when you really start having the bolts and 2 steps in between. The same to reliability. So from very early, not reliable at all, to as built and even defining the accuracy of that. So these 2 skills give you a structure to communicate the needs, and you can find all the use cases. Like if you are in urban planning, just designing a mess of how a building is going to be placed, is just a symbolic representation of a huge mess. But the accuracy has to be really at least coordinated, because you are talking about the space that you are going to use and the edges, and you have to meet the urban space requirements and so on and so on. So that's one way. Then you have the description. Maybe this is a place to describe your needs, and also we start having checklists as well. So an example that I see right away in my checklist is all the stairs in this example have to be connected to the floors. That's something that I'm going to check. But you could start adding anything like a not to model below, and so on and so on. So this is a little bit more structured way of requesting data. Still, it's a text information that you are going
Hmm.
to enter there.
Like, I was also wondering, based on your experience, do you know any published standards trying to uh, cover this topic? Because the system that you already shown, the reliability and the level of can you go up back?
This one.
Yeah, the geometry and reliability. This is system that you developed. You decided to do it in such a way, but it could be any other different way. So, are you familiar with any? I don't know. It won't be a standard, but a
It
document
is
that
actually.
certain countries that are using something structured
Mhm.
maybe in a different way, something to because uh, the issue that we already discussed is that there is no universal way, and I'm trying to figure out if there is something that's gonna uh, be used more frequent than the other options, or something that we need to that need to grab our attention, to focus, because there are a lot of different ways to uh, explain these requirements, and sometimes it's really confusing.
Yeah, so actually there is a standard, and that we are fully aligned with, and that's the 17412, which talks about this exchange, so the level of information need, which is not only about the information, but also about the geometrical aspects and purposes and different yeah, aspects of your needs.
Mhm.
So that is a standard, and then there are some country-specific approaches, of course. So in the UK, RICS is has produced such documentation. If I can talk about that for a second, we also started putting together something. We actually were invited to host this approach, which was between university and industry players, to start creating, do we have it somewhere here, methods of measurement. So methods of measurement, I quickly added to our project. This is something that you will also find in our templates. It starts talking about these exact geometrical challenges that we are facing typically on projects. It doesn't cover everything. Moreover, it's an open approach. So if anyone is interested to contribute to that or join this approach, more than welcome. So it starts defining how to model things. For the sake, in this example, because it's a methods of measurement, keeping the quantification in the focus and focusing on model creation and geometry from a quantification perspective. Again, this is a guideline. This is a kind of a starting point for debate. But the feedback that we get from the industry, from real big names, is that it's a good approach to have. And maybe also answering your question, because that was not unified way of doing things, and this is attempting to bring each other closer a little bit. So 17412, then maybe our guideline as well as a starting point.
Okay, thank you very much. We got another question here in the chat. Are you able to open the chat, or you
Oh, yeah,
prefer
probably I can.
to?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, did you find the question?
It's the long one, right?
Yes.
I wanted to ask if you feel there are some more neglected document formats that you feel should be pushed more. In my experience, PIR is a bit neglected. I think so. I mean, most of these documents are neglected. I think that's my personal understanding. So when we talk about the starting document, we talk about the BEP. But the BEP is already an answer for something, which is the EIR. Maybe these two documents are known the most. But in a perfect world, as I showed in the presentation, OIR, PIR, and also AIR, those are assembling, or those are putting together an EIR. So these documents should be handled by the client, the customer, the appointing party who is asking for the project. And in my personal view, those companies are the least educated on information management technologies. Again, they are just having a different business focus, not necessarily on digital information creation. So when we talk about ISO 19650, these approaches are going to be brought together, and those companies are also going to be educated on it. So I believe BEP and EIR are the well-known, but OIR, PIR probably are neglected. Also, my personal favorite is the risks. So to think about anything that can go wrong, and then try to come up already with solutions. So not only start firefighting when it already happens, but especially with some experience and lessons learned, create a document that will help us navigate through the problems. And yeah, I mean, mobilization also another one. These are not as much used probably as they will be in the future. ISO 19650 defines the need for all these. So if you go with the ISO way, everyone is going to have these documents as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anybody? Okay.
what the Kobe planner, Kobe planner covered in Planoly. So that's a question, right? Let me see.
I think so. Yeah, I'm looking into it right now.
Yeah, so Jordan is not a big fan of interoperability tools, which, yeah, absolutely. Understandable. Sometimes they are under continuous development to become better and better. And the end goal, I think, is to stop exchanging files and really start exchanging information in the end somehow. So I think that's a rough path that we are all on. Kobe, we are trying to make it simple. You might be laughing at me, but that's the truth. So if you go to our YouTube channel, I show you a video that talks about that. So Kobe and Planoly. This one again, that was actually another approach when academy, so yeah, university and industry players were involved together with us to create an easy to use Kobe dictionary library and create Kobe parameters. I can send you this link, but very briefly, what it means is that the problem with Kobe is that in most cases, they just say, I need Kobe. And that's a huge amount of information, which is not going to be used in the end. So it means a huge administration burden to manage to create and to keep it updated for the ones creating the models. But in the end, it's not going to be used. So what's the purpose? What we came up with is a library that you can find in the application. Defined in 3 different ways your Kobe library. I think this is the most, one of the ones which is really good. I think the Revit add-on adds the Kobe prefix before the Kobe parameter actually. But if you take a quick look, it is about putting all the possible properties that Kobe defines per sheet. So that's on the tags per sheet into a library. And then we also put a tag on each property from light, intermediate, and full, saying that if you only need an entry kind of Kobe deliverable, you can request the light properties. It selects only 33 properties that you can add to your project and start requesting those properties. Of course, you can even further refine, so you can be selective and only request such properties that you need. And then once you have these properties in your project, you can start assigning them in the grid. But again, the idea is that you would be selective and only really request such properties that are going to be meaningful for your project. So as a bad example, I'm just adding them to my walls. So here are my properties. So that's the starting point. Requesting such information that is relevant for your project and that is going to be used downstream. Not every Kobe parameter, but only the ones that are needed. On the other hand, once you start receiving models, these models we will check inside of Planoly as well. As I mentioned, linking up with ACC and BIM 360. So having the model in the application will automatically fill the requirements. You can see them already here. So having an information requirement is going to be matched with the modeling property. We can even analyze the quality, seeing that 25 pieces of the ceiling is good, 4 pieces are not that good. But it is applicable to the Kobe parameters as well. So you will have a quality report about your Kobe parameters, if it's missing, if it's added, if it's good, and so on and so on. And then creating a Kobe report can also happen from Planoly. So the handover data report is your Kobe report that is going to be created based on your model content against the Kobe parameters that you were requesting. That's our Kobe planner pretty much. If you want to see more about it, it is also among the templates. So please take a look on that. I can also add it to my project and just read more about the Kobe planner. Plus, what I would also recommend, because that's probably even better, is take this video that I'm going to share with you and yeah, just watch it. I hope I managed to answer the question. Let me see.
Yeah, and I think there is a final question here again. You could check it in the chat, but pretty much is about creating digital twins.
Digital twins is meant for the operation phase, right? So having the exact digital version of your physical facility to understand its behavior and the different assets, that requires a good starting point. And what we do here in Planoly is defining the starting point. So defining what is the information that has to be collected, what is the information that has to be created, collected throughout the digital execution of the project, and in relation then later on to the physical operation, what is the information that you need. So what you can expect in the end is such an information model that can be fed with live data, pretty much. Ourselves, we are not producing a digital twin, we are requesting the right information to make sure that it can be used for a defined purpose.
Nice. Okay, thank you. Okay. Trying to see if there are any other questions. No, there aren't any questions. I believe that you're gonna share your presentation, so everybody who has registered for the meeting today will receive the materials. If you think that you want to share some external links, you could also add them maybe to your presentation. So
Absolutely.
because we're gonna send an email to everybody with the presentation, maybe uh we are also we're gonna also include this additional information. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's it. Thank you very much for all the interesting information that you shared with us. I think it was very insightful and also uh provoke some more questions as well, but material to think about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I shared my email address in the chat as well. So feel free
Perfect.
to reach out if there are any questions. And I'm going to send you the presentation after the call.
Thank you very much,
Thank
and
you.
I hope see you soon. Bye bye.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Bye bye.